Thank you, Pastor. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. Today, I'm going to share something very short and simple. It's about today's reading. If you have read through, it's about judging rightly. So you can guess my topics of my sharing is do not judge. So this is a confession time, right? For the last few days, when you received the SOP for Chinese New Year, how many of you have judged our minister? Okay, how many of you? You don't need to raise up your hand, but okay, I saw one hand. Okay, thank you for being honest. Now, honestly, I didn't judge him because I know that whatever was done was prepared by something thanks of God. So it is not so fair to judge this person, but at the end of the day, he is still the one who is passing on the message. So somehow or rather, I think the judgment, yes, should still be reserved to him. But just now when I log in and I saw only two persons here, Christine and me, I say, alamak. So I judge again. I think everybody is away buying Chinese New Year goodies. So what it is reminding us is today is we have come to a point where we can make or pass judgment easily. And today, as I said earlier, if you have your Bible ready, if you have Bible ready, in the shorter version, okay, it is just the devotion is more on do not judge, but in the plus versions, okay, we will read do not judge and do not be anxious. Okay, so I won't spend that. I won't talk on the do not be anxious. Just focus on do not judge. Recorded in Luke chapter 6, verse 37 to 45, today's reading, and of course it's in Matthew chapter 6, verse 19 to 34. So I give you some times if everybody can turn your Bible to these two places. Keep your fingers on one so that you can refer to it easily. Both Matthew chapter 6, 37 to 45, Matthew 7, 1 to 6. Okay, so if you have found it, okay, I'm going to start from Luke chapter 6. Yeah. Before today's reading, which is Luke 6:37, the passages before that is a very familiar passage. Okay, I think we covered that in this week's BWJ. Do not hate our enemies, but love our enemies. So last night, our DG also, we went through this. What does it mean by do not hate, but love our enemies? And even as we continue to ponder upon it, I believe God is reminding us, okay, when we say we don't hate, but love our enemies, indirectly, okay, it is pointing us towards judging others. Of course, there are circumstances. Our enemies could be those who persecute us, who make our life very tough, like hell. But I believe it is somehow also pointing us to making poor judgment on people. Now, the kind of love for enemies, I believe Jesus, he wasn't talking about the affections, okay, one towards another. But it is really an intentional, it's an act of will to love our enemies. Okay, I repeat that. It is not an affection that we show towards our enemies, but it is an act of will to love our enemies. So immediately after that sermon, in a sense, about loving our enemies, okay, if you look at Luke 6, okay, Luke 6, verse 36, Jesus said, be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Then he continued, verse 37. This is the verse that we are going to go into some detail today. Do not judge. Okay, again, verse 36 say, be merciful because our Father is merciful. And continue to verse 37 and say, do not judge. Both Matthew and Luke, okay, mention three items here. Do not judge, do not condemn, and forgive. Do not judge, do not condemn, and forgive. Now, interestingly, okay, it is only found in Luke chapter 6. Jesus gave an illustration of grain in either in a jar or in a basket, okay, which is in verse 38. He said that a good measure, pressed down, shaken, running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to use. Now in the NLT versions, it is using for with the standard you use. Okay, the same standard will be given to you. What this verse, okay, is crucial is telling us that if we treat others graciously, full of compassion, the same will be returned to us in full. Okay, that's why it say that a good measure pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Now, how does all these things tie together? Because first, Jesus said, God is merciful. Then Jesus said, do not judge, do not condemn, forgive. Then he gave an illustration of grain in a basket, firmly pressed down. How does all this tie together? All right. I just want to sidetrack a bit because a lot of people has misused verse 38. Okay, a lot of people tie this to monetary gain. In a lot of teachings, people are being encouraged to give more because they refer to this verse. They say the more that you give, essentially money, the more God will reward you back. Okay, so I personally don't believe this kind of teachings. Okay, because Jesus, it is not talking about material giving at all. That's why I said all these verses are linked together. Jesus used the word give. Okay, he never used or he never intended to relate it to wealth or money. That's why he's in the verse above, he said, do not condemn, do not judge, and forgive. So this is the gift. These are the characteristics Jesus was referring to. Okay, when he say give, they mean that the characteristics within us that we need to give to others. Some people are quite confused because after saying all this, Jesus said, can the blind lead the blind? It's like disconnected, okay, because it somehow like disjointed what Jesus was saying. Suddenly in verse 39 to verse 40, after saying all this, do not judge, do not condemn, and say that you must give, and then firmly press down, it will be whatever measure that you use, it will be measured get back to you. Then suddenly Jesus said, can the blind lead the blind? And I believe Jesus is a perfect teacher. Okay, he doesn't simply say anything. Another place where Jesus used this statement, can the blind lead the blind? Okay, I need you to turn quickly to Mark chapter 4, verse 21. Jesus reminded his disciples, and this is after he has told them about the parables of the soils, the 4 types of soil. Then Jesus asked them, can a light or the lamp be hidden? Then Jesus brought out this verse. In a sense, the same thing, can the blind lead the blind? Meaning that he is indirectly referring to the Pharisees. Okay? When he said that, can the blind lead the blind? Okay, we are not supposed to follow people like the Pharisees, which we have spent a lot of time last few days or last week, that they are so focused on rituals. They are so focused on the man-made law, and they forget about the big picture. okay, which is about God, the love of God. After all this, then Jesus gave the most famous so-called examples. And even I believe in ordinary English essay, this sentence is used. Okay, can't you see the so-called the log or the spank or the plank, sorry, or the beam? Some Bible versions say beam in your own eye. Instead of you can notice the speck in your brother's eye. I paraphrase that. And this is quite interesting because I remember when I was young, one day my father brought back one whole lorry load of sawdust. I was little at that time. I was so happy because I can play with the sawdust. Then of course I got the scolding and spanking because I messed up the whole place. So I know how a speck, the size of a speck. And of course, the speck, some people say is small piece of wood or sawdust. So what is the similarity between a speck and a plank or log or beam? The answer is they came from the same family. Okay, they came from the same family, which is wood, or in the material sense, they come from the same material substance. Now, when Jesus says that, do not judge, you will not be judged, is he telling us whenever we see some wrongdoings, whenever we see some injustice, whenever we see something that has gone wrong, then we just walk away, do not judge, do not condemn, and just forgive whatever wrongdoings people are doing? So I believe this is not what Jesus meant. Okay, what is he trying to tell us? It is reminding us, because we know God is righteous, God dislikes evils. Jesus is not telling us, okay, that we should walk away or we should hide other people's wrongdoing. In fact, what he's saying is we should worry our own wrongdoings rather than rationalizing other people's mistake. I give you examples. I still remember when my son was young. One day he came back. I think which subject I can't remember. I said, how can you get 50 marks? He said, it's okay. All my friends got less than 50. So he is rationalizing his own failure. I think this is what God is telling us. Sometimes we try to rationalize God. It's okay. I know I'm a sinner. I know I made wrong mistakes, but it's okay. Look at that guy. Okay, he has committed bigger sin, bigger wrongdoings than me. Okay, and if you turn to Matthew chapter 7 now, okay, like I said, this Matthew 7 and Luke 6, they are more or less the same, but this verse is not in Luke 6. Matthew chapter 7, verse 2. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. This is the time when Jesus linked these things together now. The grain in the basket and the judgment together. For in the same way we judge others, okay, we will be judged. And the same standard we use, the same standard, it will be applied to us. So there is a flip side of it. Because when we interpret it, most of the time we say, okay, we must show goodness, we must show compassion and kindness, and God will return the same thing to us. But we tend to forget the flip side is we show negative behavior, the same measure will be returned to us. So we are reminded of our motives and our conduct. Because when we judge others, okay, we have already a referencing point. And this referencing point sometimes could be our own habit, our own culture, our upbringing, our behavior pattern. So it is very easy for us to find faults and judge others. Okay, example just now, okay, when the Chinese New Year SOP came out, okay, because we have already that behavior pattern, and it is something that has infringed into our norm. So because of that, it's easily we can pass the judgment. Now let me refer to some Bible verse now, okay, about judging others. It's in James chapter 4, verse 11 to 12. Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sisters or judges them speaks against the law and judged it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. Verse 12. There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor? Now, what is this law? Okay, this is not the Jewish law. In today's application, this is the so-called law given by Jesus to us, which is number one, love our God. Number two, love our neighbors. Okay, so this is the law that we are referring to in today's world. So coming back to Jesus' illustrations about the speck and the plank in our own eye. It is not, again I say, a blanket statement that we need to overlook or ignore wrongdoings of others. But it is reminding us to have a discerning heart and trust that God will be the final judge. And then the Bible verse I want to refer to is in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 3 to 5. I care very little if I am judged by you or by any human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself, said Paul. My conscience is clear, but that does not make me innocent. It is the Lord who judges me. Therefore, judge nothing before the appointed time. Wait until the Lord comes. He will bring to light what is hidden in darkness, and he will expose the motives of the heart. At that time, each will receive their praise from God. So it is reminding us that sometimes when we see things not according to our way, or things that is so obvious has gone wrong, before we pass our own judgment, God is reminding us, hey, look at your own heart first. Okay, because ultimately God is the final judge. And we need to hold on to this trust that he will come and he knows what truly is inside one's heart. I want to wrap up quickly because, as I said, it is easier to say than done. Do not judge. Because I believe when I finish this lunchtime devotion, when I go out and then somebody, drive too slow in front of me, okay, typical male Malaysian will say, I must be a woman driver. Okay, then we make that kind of judgment easily. So that's why I say it is easier to say than done, that we do not judge. But the speck and the log, okay, comparisons, is reminding me that they come from the same family. Okay, they come from the same family of wood. The reason we can pick up or we can spot wrongdoings in another person's because we are familiar with their wrongdoings. The reason we can pick up the speck in another person's eye because we are familiar with it. It is reminding us that I can spot an error in another person because I am guilty of the same sin. Because I am guilty of the same sin. That's why I can easily pick up and then I make judgment on that person's mistake. Okay. I hope you can capture what I want to say here is the speck and the log, they are from the same family. The person that we are going to judge, he or she and us, we belong to the same family. We are all sinners. So God is reminding us, before you say something bad, before you judge another person, look at your own heart. Because ultimately, God will be the final judge and God will look at our heart. I just want to conclude with two applications. Number one is, of course, we do not pick on others' wrongdoing easily and then start to make judgment, because the verse I refer to in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, because if we judge them, we are assuming the role of a judge. But 1 Corinthians chapter 4 has reminded us who is the final judge. The second application point is we need to acknowledge our own imperfection and our own sin. Because by acknowledging our own imperfections, God will give us the discerning heart to judge. Okay? Yes, God allows us to judge, but to judge with humility, to judge with love towards that person. Because we are reminded over and over again that we should not condemn, but to love our enemies. So Jesus tied back everything together. First, as I say in Luke chapter 6, verse 36, God is merciful. God will be the final judge. And we are just his vessels to continue to show love, to shine for him in this world. All right. I think that is the end. I just want to again remind even myself that even these few so-called verses, is in a sense rebuke me sometimes, that when I make judgment, am I being fair to that person? Am I giving that person a chance to see the light of Jesus inside me when I make the same mistake as that person?